what I think is amazing is how Paul ties it back to the heart of God,
Mm-hmm.
and how he uses this quote from the Old Testament that says, "The insults of those who insult you, O God, have fallen on me."
Right.
And so it's kind of, he's showing this heart of people who don't live just for themselves,
Right.
what they want, but rather that they look at how it impacts God,
Mm-hmm.
and they view things through that lens to say, God, is this something that pleases you? Is this
Right.
something that honors you? Um, then in verses 5 and 6, to really talk about harmony
Yeah.
and uniting together. And I mean, that's one of our big anthems, right? is
Right.
is to unite the body of Christ together. And I think that throughout this entire book, throughout this entire study, Paul has shown us how to put God first in our
Mm-hmm.
lives, how to surrender our own will, how to
Yeah.
lay down the things in our lives that can cause division between people, and how to demonstrate the love of God, and drawing into this relationship with the Lord. That is where that unity comes from, right? Like, you and I as individuals,
Mm-hmm.
our own selfish nature, our own humanity, we're not very prone
Mm-mm.
to want to lay down things and
No.
and
We
be
love for other
united.
people to lay down things,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we don't want to do it.
yeah. Give up your way so that I can have
Right.
my way.
Compromise means you, not me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But Paul, throughout this book, has told us how we are to live as followers of Jesus, and
Yeah.
and to lay down our lives, to pick up our cross, to follow Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that comes this beautiful, like, harmony
Mm-hmm.
and uniting together, not as individuals, but as individuals in God,
Right.
in Jesus. Um,
I think there's something beautiful too that if you've been walking with the Lord for a season and you're around someone who hasn't, that that space of I feel like it's just like that whether you call it compromise or that patience that you give in that, I feel like it also reminds you where you've come from. And it gives you that, like, you forget. Do you know what I'm saying? And it gives you that moment where you're like, "Oh, I remember
mhm.
this."
Yeah,
And it just it gives you more compassion.
for sure.
Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Because
yeah, absolutely, it
it's like,
does.
I think we should all want to remember that, because I think that we forget the newness and how precious that is and how
Mhm.
special that is,
Yeah.
and learning to build that faith muscle. And when you're believing God for something for the first time, that's scary.
Mhm.
And when you're on the other side of it, you're like, yeah, God's faithful. And like, I can look back at all these things that He's done. But yeah, look back far enough and you remember where this is your first time to ever believe Him. And when you walk that out with somebody, with that unity,
Right.
what He's talking about, but
Yeah.
when you start bearing with each other, bearing each other's burdens, right? When you begin to partner with other people and you stop and slow down and go, I remember the first time I had to really trust God in the unknown. I remember
Mm,
the first time I had to trust God with things that were out of my control. I
mhm.
remember the first time that I had to lay down something in hopes that God was going to take care of it. When you go back and you look at that, and you're, by partnering with somebody and bearing their burdens, or carrying helping them carry their load, for lack of better words,
Mhm.
it's such a sweet place also, um, for you to go, wait a minute, God has been so faithful.
Mhm.
Because now I'm going back and I'm looking and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah,